Hi everyone, and welcome to. Nope, we're gonna try that again. Hi, hi everyone. It's Karen, and no, I take a week off and I forget how to do this. Oh, good grief. Hi everyone, and welcome to episode number 30 of the Karen Knits podcast. My name is Karen, and I'm coming to you from South Central Pennsylvania, where I live, where I work, where I knit and crochet, and get into all kinds of other crafty shenanigans. Today is Saturday, September 5th, 2020, and it's a gorgeous autumn day here. Oh, beautiful blue skies. Couple little puffy white clouds here and there, a little bit of a breeze. It's gorgeous, gorgeous day. So I missed last week posting a podcast. We are back to school here, and I'm back to a more scheduled work schedule. I guess I can call it. I'm back to teaching classes, and university's back in session for 2 weeks now, and it's going well. I opted for teaching remotely. My husband has asthma, and I don't really want to expose him to any more potential getting sick than necessary. So I did opt to teach remotely, so I am teaching my classes on Zoom during our regular scheduled class time, and it's going well. So since that's been going on the past couple weeks, I have had some more cutbacks in my crafting time, and I really haven't done as much. So when I was ready to do my podcast last week, I had one little finished object to show you, which I will show you in just a couple minutes here. But I really didn't have much work that I had done on anything else. So it was pretty sparse. So I'll talk a little bit more, probably repeat some of this again at the end of the podcast. But I just opted to take a week off filming a podcast because I thought, well, I'll show you one little thing that I finished. I'll show you the half an inch I did on my Tenya sweater, and we'd be done. So I waited for another week in hopes that I would have a little bit more time to get a little bit more stuff done, and I did. I did manage to get a little bit more done, and spoiler alert, I have a new cast on. It's not a cast on, it's crochet. So I have a new project that I started just yesterday. Short notice, found out that there was something that I really wanted to make, or really, I don't want to say needed to make, but really wanted to make, and I have a very short deadline on it, so I jumped on it. I hadn't really wanted to get started on a new project. I wanted to keep working on my existing works in progress. I wanted to keep working on those and get those done up and finished up. But realizing that this is something I needed or wanted to get done, I hopped on this one and got going on it yesterday. And I'm making some decent progress on it, but you'll have to wait a couple minutes, and I'll show you that in a little bit. So without further ado, and before I drag out this poor little intro even longer, here comes motorcycle just went by. He wasn't too loud. I want to talk first about one finished object that I have. And it's probably not a huge surprise that I have one more miniature sweater done. This is the fourth and final sweater in year number 4 of the miniature sweater challenge. And these are patterns by, I'm just double checking, making sure I have the name correct, Wayfaring Yarns Designs and Sweater Sisters Designs. It's under both of those names. So this is year number 4 that they've been doing this little mini sweater challenge. And this is the first year that I've completed, each year they do 4 sweaters. So this is the 4th year of doing 4 sweaters. So this is the first year I've made all 4 of the little mini sweaters. And this was sweater number 4. All the sweaters this year followed a cable theme. And this one was a lot of fun. I've never knit anything like this before. You start here and you knit this way. And you knit across, you get to the sleeve, then you add on a bunch of stitches, then you keep knitting for a little bit, and then you divide it up to do the opening for the neckline, and then you continue knitting the front separate and then the back separate. They're the same cable pattern on both of them. And then once you get to the end of here, you go here and then you cast off a bunch of stitches and then you continue on doing the sleeve. So I've never done a complete sweater of any size from cuff to cuff, side to side pattern. So that was really fun. It was a really interesting way of constructing a sweater, and I really enjoyed it and really learned a lot on making this one. I used 2.5mm needles or US 1.5. I used leftover fingering weight yarn, and this was yarn that I had dyed myself, but it's just leftover from another project. I have to weigh the little bit of yarn that's left and mark down how many ounces of yarn, or how many grams of yarn I actually used. My guess is it was somewhere between 17 and 19 grams of yarn were used on this one. That's been typical for each of them. I cast it on, I did mark that down. I cast this on, the pattern came out on Monday the 25th of August. I had classes on Monday the 24th, sorry. The pattern was released Monday the 24th. That was the first day of classes, so I was busy with prep work for that and getting everything organized in the morning. We had a few additional Zoom meetings that we had that day as well, plus class time itself. And I didn't get it cast on Monday. So I cast it on Tuesday. I had classes on Wednesday again. So it actually took me Tuesday through Friday to finish this cute little guy. So it took me a little longer than usual, but I just didn't have the spare time. So as you can see, this is basically all the knitting I did all last week. So, and then also I did about that much on my Tenya sweater. So this would have been the end of the podcast if I had done this pretty much the end of it if I had done this last week. So that's my little finished object. So it's another cute little mini sweater. And I am planning on going back and knitting the ones from the other years. So here's the 4 of them. What I'll do is I'll insert a picture over here of the 4 of them together. And what I am planning on doing is I am planning on knitting all the sweaters from the previous 3 years, and I'm going to make a little garland out of them. And I think I'm going to use some kind of ribbon, or I'm not sure exactly what I'll use for attaching, and then probably just a little miniature wooden clothespins to attach. That's how you do it. to attach the little sweaters onto whatever ribbon or whatever I use to hang them. And then I'm just going to use a garland, and I'll probably have it hanging up on the other side, on one of the walls in my craft room. So that's my finished object for the week. I don't expect, possibly, maybe not. I might have another finished object next week, but that just depends on how much time I'm able to spend working on my new work in progress. But I do want to spend a few minutes. I'll just talk about my current works in progress right now. So my first work in progress is still living in my fringe supply field bag, and that is my Tenya sweater. And over the last 2 weeks, not just the last week, over the last 2 weeks, I've got a decent amount of progress done on it. It's at a point now where it's a little bit more awkward to show you what's what, because I have divided for the sleeve. And this is the front over here, which is on an extra cable, and the back I'm working on here. And since I showed you this last, this is the progress I've made from the metal stitch progress keeper, progress minder, whatever you call it. That's the progress I've made. So there was a few rounds here. I think this is about all I had done in the past week. Maybe not even quite that much up to this marker. And I had probably only done a small handful of rounds on that. And the rest I've done earlier part this week. So I'm working along on the back portion. This little bluey green marker is marking how much, or the distance I need to do on the armhole before I start doing this. I haven't read that far ahead in the pattern, before I start doing the stuff for the shoulder. So I have kind of mapped out and worked out what I was planning on doing about the fact that the sleeves as written on the pattern would likely not fit my pudgy little arms. So I did a lot of studying on the pattern, and when I looked at the pattern, it gives instructions saying that from when you divide for the armholes, you knit a certain number of inches on both the front and the back, and when you go to pick up the sleeves, you pick up a certain number of stitches all the way around for the armhole. And when I was looking at those for various sizes, it, to my mind, it looked like you would knit a certain distance more, or you'd knit a certain, so to go from the third large size to the second largest to the third largest, or to the largest size, you knit, it was roughly an inch more each for each size. And then when you look at the number of stitches you pick up, for each inch more that you were, that's not an inch, but for roughly each inch that you were having in length here, you pick the same number of stitches up. So for example, for the third largest, the third from the largest size, you knit a certain number of inches, and then you knit picked up a certain number of stitches. And then the ratio was, I'm not explaining this very well at all. The ratio between how much more you knit per size and how many stitches you picked up, that was a relatively constant ratio. going from each of the largest sizes. So I thought, well, it looks like that math will work if I just simply do the body for the size that I need, and then I'll just simply knit an extra, I think I'm going to do either 1 inch to 1.5 inches more along the front and back before I do the shoulder portion, and then I will pick up that ratio more stitches when I go to pick up the stitches around there. And then from that point, it'll be proportionally larger all the way down the length of the sleeve. So I'll have a certain number more stitches here, and then when you start doing the decreases down the sleeve, I'll be able to just decrease at the same rate. And when I end up at the end of the sleeve, I will just have that number extra stitches that I initially cast on. So the sleeve will be larger all the way down. I think it'll work. So tune in over the next few weeks when I've had a chance to do more on that and I finish the front and back and I'm ready to add on the sleeves. Stay tuned. We'll see if this worked. I don't want to explain it in a lot more detail because I don't want to be giving out information on the pattern with how many inches and how many stitches and that kind of thing. So that's the plan. We'll see if it works out. But chances are I'm not going to have as much time to work on it for the next week to 2 weeks. I've switched over to another work in progress that I just started up yesterday on Friday. Yeah. So I just found out, or did I start? No, I didn't start Thursday night. I started on Friday morning. So that was my first work in progress. My scrap wrap is just living in my my Fringe Supply town bag. It's just sitting here. I have not touched that in 2 weeks. I haven't added this is the most I've touched it, literally touched it in the last 2 weeks. It's had zero love in the last 2 weeks. I spent more time working on the little sweater and my Tenya sweater and work, my job. So I figure I best do the job portion as well, since that's what provides the money to keep me in this lifestyle. So that part comes first. So to make that long story marginally shorter, probably too late, I have cast on or have started a new work in progress. So on Thursday, I found out that a former colleague of mine and his wife are expecting a baby girl in the end of September. So I knew they had been planning on starting a family and had been trying to start a family, and I've lost touch with them in the last year or so. I usually see his wife, I usually run into her once a year at one specific conference. Well, that conference this spring, it would have been in March, I think it's in March, April. That conference was obviously canceled, so I didn't get my annual meet up with her. So I haven't seen her in over a year. Well, a year since last March or April. I think the conference is in April. Anyway, so I haven't seen her. So I didn't see her this year in April, when I would have found out at that point that, I suspect I would have found out at that point that she was pregnant. So anyway, so once I found out that they are expecting a baby girl, I thought, I want to, because they're such a sweet couple. I love them. They're just the sweetest people. And so I thought, I really wanted to make a baby blanket for them. And I thought, okay, well, there's absolutely no way I will finish a knit blanket, even baby blanket size, I'll never be able to finish that in time. It'll be their baby's first birthday before I get it done. So I am able to crochet blankets way quicker than I'm able to knit them. And in general, I quite enjoy doing making crochet blankets. So I went rooting through some of my patterns, and I went rooting through my existing yarn stash, and I thought I wanted to make something that was going to be easy care. So I don't want her to have to think about, I don't know if, and I don't think she's does any fiber crafting at all. So I'm not sure how she would fare with keeping track of how to care properly for a beautiful wool blanket that's not superwash or anything. So I thought, just to keep life as simple as possible, I want to make it in an acrylic fabric or an acrylic yarn, and that way she doesn't have to worry anything about the care. She can just throw it in the washing machine, throw it in the dryer, treat it like any acrylic store-bought sweater that it's wash and wear. So if the blanket gets soiled, no big deal. Throw it in the washing machine, run it through the dryer, we're good. As I know, a lot of people are anti-acrylic yarn for knitting. I'm not fussy one way or the other way. Currently I prefer working with wool and wool blend right now, but I also have a huge stash of acrylic yarn that I've had for years and that I'm perfectly happy working with as well for certain projects. So again, long story short, I had made a baby blanket a couple years ago. I'll insert a picture over here in a little bit. But I'd made an Afghan a while back out of mostly, well, sort of scraps. And it was quick, it was easy, and I love, 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 love the finished look of it. It's just, it really turns out cool. So the pattern is called Bouncy Ball Baby Blanket, and it's by Debbie Smith. So I chose to use acrylic yarn I had in stash, and I chose to do it in, the yarn color is called fuchsia, but it's a worsted weight yarn by Mainstays. Is that a Walmart brand? It's old yarn. I know I've had it. A friend of mine was clearing out her yarn stash over 8 years ago when we used to live in Maine. And she had given me a bunch of yarn, and I'm almost 100% sure that that yarn came from her place. But the name of the yarn is called fuchsia. So it's a nice rosy pink kind of color, and a white as the contrast. So here is, without further ado, here is what each individual square is made in squares. And then you stitch all the squares together, and Bob's your uncle. And they work up really quick. It's done with a 5mm hook. So this is Canadian in me coming out. It's a 5mm hook or a size H crochet hook. And each square, when it's done up, measures right around just shy, I think I've got it pegged at just shy of 7 inches square. So what I plan on doing is I will either make it 6 by 6 squares or 7 by 7, depending on how much pink I have. If I'm running low on pink, it'll be 6 by 6, but I'm almost 100% sure I will have plenty of the pink yarn to do it 7 by 7. So 6 by 6 before I do a small border all the way around. 6 by 6 will make it 42-inch square blanket, and a 7x7 will make it 49 inches. Plus I'll do probably about a half an inch to an inch border all the way around the whole thing. So this crochets up really quick and easy. I tend to make a whole bunch of these little, the ball part, the bouncy ball part, and that's just a 3 round, you just do 3 rounds of the stitching in double crochets, US terms double crochets. I end up with one tail in the middle, which I will go back in a little while. I will go back and I'll tuck in all these tails. It'll just take a few minutes just to zip it around back in there. This tail, what I do when I finish the dots, I'll make up a bunch of them. Right now I've got 3 extra ones made, and I will go back through and I'll make probably another 3, or I'll either do them in batches of 6 or 7, just because that'll be the width of the blanket. So the next part, you do a combination of stitches to bring it to a square, and then you just do 2 rounds of simple double crochet all the way around. And when I am stitching, or when I'm adding the white on here, I will crochet over and I will tuck in this tail from the outside of the ball, and I will tuck in the starting end of the white. So once I'm done, I'm only going to have these 2 ends to tuck in. And the middle one is easy peasy to do. This one is also, it's very straightforward. Often I will just run it along here, and when I'm stitching the 2 parts together, I'll run that inside the seam. So it just automatically gets tucked in. So for me, I don't find tucking in the tails on these to be a huge bother to do. But since I started this yesterday, and we weren't home last night, so I didn't have any time to work on it last night, I already have six of these squares already done. So you can see that once you start attaching it, it's a really cute pattern. I'm gonna say I'll insert it here so you can see what the finished blanket looks like from the one I made and gave away to, I don't remember who I gave it to. Anyway, I did it in white, with either white or cream with the blue center. A similar blue to this, actually. It's a very similar greeny blue to this color. But I'll insert a picture here of that one so you can see it. It's a really cool looking blanket when I think it's a really cool looking blanket once it's done. So that is my newly started work in progress. Like I say, the baby is due end of September. We're already at the 5th of September. I'd like to give myself I'd like to have it done within a week to 2 weeks, so that I have plenty of time to get it in the mail and send off to them. We don't live far apart, but with everything going on, I don't think we'll be able to make a trip up there and drive up there to visit them, especially where she's so close to her due date. I don't want to bring strange germs over to her place. So I think what I'll do is I will pop it in the mail for them, or if we drop it off, we'll just have like a drop-off place for them. But I do want to get that to her before the baby arrives. So I will be spending most of my spare time over the next week or 2 working on that. So hopefully you will have another finished object to see. I would shock the living daylights out of myself if I have it done to show you next weekend. It's possible because it is really a fast project. It's those squares come together so quickly. Like I say, it only took a few minutes. I think what I'll do is I'm going to time myself. Yeah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to just set a timer and see how long it takes me to make each middle. and then see how long it takes me to add the white portion around it. So just to give me an idea of how long it takes to make each and every square. It's pretty quick. So those are my little finished object. Little is the key word. And my two works in progress. And I also have a single piece of stash acquisition to show you. So let's take a look at that. So in the past, I think it was last weekend, I can't remember what day this arrived, but my August knit crate, sock crate, August 2020 package arrived in the mail quite recently. I did a quick unboxing video of that and posted it on this YouTube channel earlier this week. Monday, Tuesday, Sunday? Recently. If you just go back, it'll be the video right before this one. So this is the yarn that came in the August sock crate. And I opt for the anything goes because I'm not fussy about whether it is whether it's a cool tone, a warm tone, whatever. For socks, I don't care. This, I love it. This was so pretty. This is, let's see if I can, Knitology. Knitology Super Sock. And the colorway is Gibbous Moon. It's 75% superwash merino, 25% nylon, 100 grams, 437 yards. So I'm not sure if that's, I don't even know if that's coming into focus for you guys. Doesn't look like it. Anywho, so that's really pretty. I don't know I don't know if these will turn into socks or I might use it as in combination with something else for a shawl perhaps. I don't know yet. I haven't decided. If it is socks, I would do something with cables or lace or something where the pattern looks fantastic when it's done in a solid or slightly tonal, mostly solid color. And then the little bonus that came with it was a little cactus Progress Keeper stitch marker little guy. So that was a little extra guy that came with it. I think he was he backwards? Yes, I think he was. And it's little green and red, cute little cactus. So that is the stitch marker Progress Keeper, not Progress Creeper. Yeah, Karen. Anywho, so that was my stash acquisition for this month, or my recent stash acquisition. And yeah, so far no other yarn or anything has ventured into my house, so that's good. And I'm working through some stash. I do one of these days want to take out all of my yarn and do a flash my stash kind of video, because I do want to go through all the yarn I have. It's a fairly substantial amount of yarn. There's no good reason why I should be buying more yarn. I do not need, you can even just see this, although this is my own hand-dyed yarn here. I have more yarn than I can probably knit as it is. So what I do want to do one of these days soon, I should do it sometime soon, is go through all of my yarn and get it all together, get it all organized, and start kind of make a list of what I plan to use all of it for. Whether I might use a bunch of it for, I suspect I'm going to use a bunch of it for donation projects. I would like to make a bunch of baby blankets. I do want to go through there because I also have, there's a younger couple at our church that I also just found out that they're expecting a baby not till December, January. I forget when, December or January. So I've got oodles of time I'd like to make them a baby blanket as well. So I do have oodles of time to make something for them. But I do want to go through my stash and try to figure out, well, what can I use a lot of this for? And go through it with a critical eye. And if there's some yarn that I honestly think I'm never going to use, life's too short. I'll donate it, the yarn itself, somewhere. Let somebody else use it. But if it is yarn that I think I will enjoy working on, then I want to do that. I also have some yarn that another friend of mine gave me. Oh, it's a few years, at least 3 or 4 years ago now, that she gave me that used to belong to her mother, and her mother has passed away since, and she got the yarn, and I'd like to make something for her with the yarn that was her mother's and give it back to her. I've been thinking I need to do that for a while, and I just need to haul out the yarn and find out if there's what else I might need to add to it to supplement what's there. I'd like to make an Afghan of some sort that she and her daughter can use on their sofa to snuggle under when they're watching TV, or that she can use on her bed, or she can have her daughter use on her daughter's bed, something. But I might need to get some supplemental yarn to add to it to make something. So that's another work in mind that I really do need to start thinking about and start. Yeah, that's something I want to get going on one of these days soon and get that done up for her. The colors are not necessarily my style of colors, but that I won't be keeping whatever I make out of it. I want to make something and give it back to her. So that's another project that I have in mind to work on down the road. But I do need to sort through all my yarn stash and figure out just what I have and start earmarking what I can use some of it for. Because like I say, I have enough yarn to knit and crochet till I'm probably about 150, 200 years old. Yeah, I've got plenty. So I really do need to start getting going with that and start working on that and start working the stash down. So that might be a challenge I set for myself later this fall. So I really do think I'm starting to ramble here. I really am starting to ramble. So we're back at school. We're back to work on a more formal schedule where I have to hold office hours. I have to be in the classroom, and it's cramping my crafting style a little bit, but such is life. So like I say, I think it'd be just the coolest thing ever if I was able to show you the baby blanket finished next week. When I make this style of blanket, I do tend to make almost all the squares in one go, and then sit down and sew them all together, because I have kind of a wonky way that I like putting multiple squares like that together. I tend to assemble one row, but what I'll do is I'll stitch two squares together, then two, and I'll stitch all the way across, but it's still open on the vertical parts, and then I'll add the next row, and again it'll still be open in between, and then I just grab a handful of long strands of yarn, and then I just whip stitch the vertical stripes. So I don't always tend to do a join as you go or join this particular type of Afghan. I don't tend to do as much of that as I'm going. I do tend to just have little stacks of these little squares already, and then I just have a mini marathon where I stitch them together. And for that, I start up a movie, start up an Amazon Prime movie, or watch something on YouTube and happily just stitch her up. I might be the outlier in this crowd that I find tucking in the tails and seaming those together. It's a Zen thing for me. I don't mind doing it at all. I can just kind of go on autopilot and watch something else while I'm doing it, and not, before I know it, it's done. But I might be viewed as weird that way. So yeah, what you gonna do? So I think that's about it. I should get going so I can get the editing done on this, and then while that's processing and uploading, I'm gonna keep working on the baby blanket so that I get it ready. As I say, that baby's on the way soon, so I'd really like to get it to them before the baby actually arrives. So on that note, I'm gonna let you guys go, and I will see you in a week again. Take care, everyone, and I'll see you again soon. Bye now.